You're listening to a Comics XF podcast.
X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story, and we mean every one of them, from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Zach. And Adam.
Hey.
I have a question for you, because you're our local art connoisseur on this podcast.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep.
What do you know about the famous wood block print from Japanese artist Hokuasi Sai, The Dream of the Fisherman's Wife?
I believe that involves some fishy tentacles, doesn't it? If I remember correctly.
Yes. It's a very famous 1800s piece of art where this one dad's like octopus squid is just going to town on a lady while what is explicitly his child octopus kid is like helping out on the top side.
Good Lord, it's like the birth of an entire subgenre of explicit content right there, huh?
I've got to be clear. This is a well-renowned painting, very famous. I believe it was featured heavily on the TV show Mad Men. So
Wow.
this is mainstream to know this.
Sure.
And also, a lot of people saw it and said, I really hope this doesn't awaken anything in me.
Well, it may have awakened something in whoever requested today's episode, because
Hold on, we are not, Adam, I'm drawing a line in the sand here. We are not going to imply that any of our Patreon patrons, who, I want to be clear, give us $5, we're not going to imply that any of them find carnal enjoyment in tentacles. If they do, go to town. Happy for y'all. I'm just like, I can see some people not being so thrilled that we were implying that this was coming from a place of them liking it instead of what I do think was the text of the request, which was a fine selection of Claremont tentacles, please. So this patron, who Ricardo Bittencourt, who reached deep down hearts, pocketbooks, coins, coffers, us $5, did point out the obvious that this is really a Claremont thing that we are all dealing with.
It sure is. Talk about awakening.
I love Chris Claremont so much.
Oh boy, he definitely has a thing for the tentacles. We're gonna see some many, and I think I need to get this out of the way, Zach. And I don't know if our listeners know this, because I don't know if it's ever come up on the show before. But one of the things that I am actually deeply afraid of is tentacled creatures, things like octopi, like a nautilus, a squid.
Has this really never come up on the show?
I don't know, but it is definitely.
I've never heard this, and we've been friends for like a spell now.
Yeah, they really scare me and creep me out. So this episode really, the stories gave me a little bit of the heebie and the jeebies. So I just wanted to say that up front.
So when H.P. Lovecraft is being like, you can't even comprehend how scary this thing is, the mortal mind can't. Adam's like, no, I'm built different. Creepy squid guy. I'm terrified of that. I understand HP. I feel the same way about this as you feel about like Sicilians or anyone darker than them, I guess.
Oof. But understandable. Burn against a racist writer.
H.P. Lovecraft he's dead. He could take one or two shots for being like
well
super
deserved.
Racist.
Well deserved, yeah. So I thought we'd get that out of the way. What is our first tentacle story of the evening, Zach?
It's just okay. Here's the thing. It's just weird that it just keeps popping up.
It will repeatedly throughout the show.
We had options about this, which is, I think, the funniest part.
That is true. We did not cover some tentacle stories, but
we left some tentacles on the table.
We did. Some charred octopus. For those who like to enjoy that as an appetizer.
I do. It's
Some
delightful.
calamari, if you will.
Those are different dishes, but yes.
I know. But
calamari doesn't actually come from the tentacles mostly. It comes from like the meat of a squid head.
Yep. Yeah.
Deep fry that stuff. It's delicious.
Pretty good.
What you were saying, Adam, is that this is actually coming from a pretty classic era of X-Men. It's Uncanny X-Men 176 Decisions.
Yes, this is. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say it was written by our boy Claremont.
Yes.
Nasty boy Claremont. He's Claremont. I'm shocked that Chris Claremont hasn't brought back the Nasty Boys. Like, look at these nasty boys I've got. They're just like me. We're so nasty.
I'll give it to him. This is a pretty sexually charged issue of the show. I keep saying.
Were you at the C2E2 where I asked Chris Claremont point blank in an interview panel what the deal with all of the fetish stuff was?
Oh, I was right next to you. Yes. And he basically just said because he's British, I think that was his answer. And we were like, oh, come on.
I feel like he was embarrassed that anyone in public called him out about that. Chris, you wrote a lot of comics about it. You were not subtle.
Well, this one doesn't go in that particular direction, but it is drawn by John Romita Jr., inked by Bob Wyacek. And you are correct. This is the final story in the From the Ashes collection. We've now covered everything from that classic trade paperback.
Have we really?
This story. Yep. I double checked my good old checklist today. And This is Madeline and Scott going off on a honeymoon on their plane. And, well, they hit a storm, crash, and have to fight off a gigantic octopus.
Hold on. The first thing they do is they hook up in the plane.
Well, yeah, and they're both looking great. I mean, just page 1 is them kissing. Page 2 is a really great shot of Scott in some short shorts. They are not well clothed here.
Or they're appropriately clothed. Listen, this was Claremont like wanting to write Scott out. He wanted Scott to be happily married.
Yes. He's very, very happy here. Very happy. He wants to go off on this adventure. Unlike Wolverine, who we get a little vignette here, he has to return the sword to Mariko. Doesn't quite understand why she's
the Yoshida honor sword.
Yes, though I believe he brings it back home with him. Right? He doesn't just leave it there. I think he keeps it.
I think he takes it. Yeah. Unless. I don't listen. He doesn't like use this sword a lot. It just comes up when people are like, "You want to remember that Wolverine solo series that's really good?"
Yeah. There's the honor right there. I know we're talking about tentacles, but there is also other sea creatures in here. In fact, Scott almost gets eaten while they're trying to repair the airplane by a great white shark, and then
luckily he has laser eyes.
Blasts it with his concussive blasts. At this point, Madeline is basically dressed in a black bikini. These guys might as well be naked.
No, so this is really about them, and what Cyclops is battling with is he's left the X-Men. He has Madeline, but there's another factor that's been weighing on him over the last little bit, which is he has a dad again, and like he found his dad's hot like skunk girlfriend wife
right.
And all of their cool friends, and they're like, Scott, would you like to be a space pirate with us?
Yes.
And he is conflicted by this of should he subject Madeline to be following him to fulfill something that is very understandable that he wants. Like, this is him starting a new chapter in his life, but what does he want that chapter to be? And it's about him like saying, you know what? I want to be a little selfless, and I want to create a new life for us, not drag Madeline into all of my nonsense. Long term, that doesn't work out for either of them.
No.
But darn it, Boy Scout, your heart's in the right place.
Yeah, and in this particular issue, it really does feel very mature. It does feel very romantic, and it's really, really nice because after a cutaway to Val Cooper talking about the threat of mutants and mutant kind, and another cutaway to the Morlocks. Man, they really got to fight this giant octopus. It's not a giant squid though. It really is just a giant octopus.
It is. Here's an interesting note. So this is a Wheezy edited thing. Now this is on the Marvel Wikia. I have no source for this, but it's one of those stories that I want to be right.
Okay.
Even if it's not true. It says the editors initially objected to this cover because they couldn't understand why Cyclops was mad at the X-Men logo. They wanted him blasting at the squid. He shoots his lasers around the X-Men logo trying to break it. Well, the squid's all on him.
I don't know. I think it works. I mean, it's just the X-Men logo's in his way as he's blasting the octopus.
It does look like he's mad at the logo. Curse you, Charles!
He's also being choked to death by a tentacle, so that's not.
He gets
fun.
better.
Oh yeah, no, he's great. So they kind of have to like work together to kill this thing. Scott gets his glasses knocked off of him, and then I love this part where to actually resolve this, he's got to put on his X-Men hat and his goggles, so he's got no shirt on, but he's got the skull cap and the visor. It's very funny looking.
I have one weird Cyclops like design thing, and that is, while I get the appeal of having him like in a hood on this, I like his look better when he has his hair out, but the problem is every time he has his hair out, everyone wants to give him a Jim Lee design, and I don't necessarily want that. I just want him to have like flowing locks.
let him have a little bit more of like a Havoc kind of Strowman look,
Yeah, see, that would be great.
Yeah,
that would be great. Oh no, because Havoc, on the other hand, I want to have a big dumb hat.
Yes,
that's the thing.
Yeah, not big dumb.
So I'm
hair.
conflicted.
That's okay. Maybe they switch off. But I do love the way this story ends, with the two of them successfully launching the plane, saying, "We're airborne," and, making out a little bit as they take off back into the sky and saying, "Hey, look, they love each other and they want to start this next chapter of their life." So at least for right now, this is a very optimistic ending. And I enjoy this issue a lot. I think it's really good.
It's like a really fun issue. I like this one.
Yeah. I mean, this is really that peak from the Ashes era that just it's not Paul Smith, but it has that same really solid character work from Claremont that I love. So why don't we try and rank this on our big old list?
Here's the thing. And longtime listeners, you may know this, that we do, in fact, own a list. And it is quite a long list. It is a list of every X-Men story ranked from best to worst. And you know what? We've ranked 906 of them. And brother, we are on that road to 1,000, the 1K road.
Hey, can I interject for just a quick second to wish?
I would love it if you would interject.
I don't want to interrupt. I just want to congratulate our compatriots over at the Bat Chat podcast, which is also a Comics XF podcast that uses the same format that we do, but for Batman. And
we stole our show from someone else.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's
fine. And they're our friends Will and Matt, but they just finished ranking 400 stories. So I think that's a huge accomplishment.
Been going on that long? Dang.
Yes. So congratulations to them. And Zach, tell us more about our incredibly giant list that's too long.
So 906, so a little bit longer than 400. I mean, it's not a competition, but we're winning.
We had a head start.
I'm just giving those guys a hard time. Ranked from best to worst, the best story is House of X Powers at 10. You know what? Let's go by the hundreds right now. We got Jungle Adventure from Wolverine at 100. Wanted Wolverine Dead or Alive at 200. Ultimate X-Men Return of the King at 300. Marvel Holiday Special 94 at 400. That's the time right before Dark Phoenix or the Phoenix Saga. Number 500 is New X-Men Choosing Sides. Number 600 is the first appearance of Adam X the Extreme. Number 700 is Spotlight on the Starjammers. 800 is Phalanx Covenant Life Signs. Number 900 is the start of All New Exiles, a terrible comic. And 906, the worst X-Men comic of all time. It's 2099 with the World of Tomorrow.
Not in the omnibus. I forgot to point that out when we mentioned the 2099 omnibus last week. I do not think that those horrific issues are in there. So
I mean, so they're doing us all a favor, really.
yeah, they really are. At 134, we have Uncanny X-Men 171, which is also from the Ashes era. That's the issue where Rogue joins. Is this better or worse than that, Zach?
It's worse than that one.
I would agree. That has that really great Simonson art. It's not that JR's art is bad here, but you can tell sometimes Wyachek is doing some of the heavy lifting. But I do think this is a top 200 story.
I do too. Do you think this is better or worse than Ladies' Night from Uncanny 244?
Look, I love Ladies' Night, but I do think that this has that like classic era vibe to it that I think works really, really well. So I would probably put this above that. I know that's probably not what you expected me to say.
I kind of didn't, but I love the energy.
If we were going to put it below it, I do think it's on par with at 146, the X-Men 24, the first Rogue and Gambit date. Like it's got that energy to it.
I think it's a bit better than that. Like I think this is better than Hickman's Giant Size.
I would agree.
I would say, here's where I'd put it.
Okay.
I would put it above Ultimate X-Men, The Tomorrow People,
Mm-hmm.
but below that limbo arc of Uncanny from Bendis.
Oh yeah, with the Fraser Irving art. That's a good place for it.
Fraser Irving art. It's so freaking good.
It really is.
Our new 139?
Yeah. It's Uncanny 176. And folks, that was really only 8 tentacles. There's so many more tentacles in our next story. I mean, just a ridiculous amount of tentacles. What is our next story, Zach?
This is Uncanny X-Men 262 and 263. This is in that double shipping era.
Oh, yeah. We're bi-monthly. What is it? What does it say on the cover? Is that right?
Yeah, now bi-monthly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or on sale twice a month.
There you go.
Because of that, Jim Lee's not drawing everything. That's a lot for Jim Lee to do.
Well, right before this, you're still in kind of like Silvestri. Like we haven't quite gotten full Jim Lee here yet. So
we are past the Siege Perilous,
right.
But before, like Jim Lee was doing the covers of the last issue with the Harriers. You remember them?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Hard Case of the Harriers. That's a bad arc that we did not cover.
It sounds like a sitcom.
Is it weird that Chris Claremont went back to that story?
Yes.
Like not that long ago.
Yeah, that's just what he likes to do. So
he loves tentacles. He loves Hard Case and the Harriers. He's going to try and get them over. But this is Kieran Dwyer on one issue and Bill Jaska on the other. How do you feel about Kieran Dwyer? I like Dwyer.
I think Dwyer's doing a great job given what he's asked to be drawing here, because this is that era post Siege Perilous where nobody really knows what's going on with the X-Men, right? Some of them,
including Christopher.
Yeah, including themselves. Like some of the X-Men themselves don't even know who they are. So in this particular case, in this time period, we have Banshee and Forge have teamed up to just really try and figure out what the deal is and to try and put the team back together.
One more thing about Kieran Dwyer.
Yes.
Because I just found this out tonight.
Oh.
Kieran Dwyer, probably best known to Marvel people as a guy who had a really good run of Captain America with Mark Greenwald.
Okay, cool.
Which I found out that McDonald's is putting out toys for the new Captain America movie, which is coming out in a year.
When are the toys coming out?
The toys are out now, my child. My child said, if you're great. A nerd and you want to not be spoiled for this thing that's probably going to show up in a trailer in 2 months, I mean, skip ahead.
Yeah.
But whatever. My child was like, oh, Bud, we got a Red Hulk toy. And I was like, that's weird. Doesn't have a mustache. Ford. That means it's the wrong one.
It's Harrison Ford.
But who else I found out was in this movie, Kieran Dwyer related? It's Diamondback, baby. We got some Serpent Society action.
Nice.
They're never going to give me the hardworking Union boy Serpent Society that I want.
Wasn't that the first name of the movie? Was like the Serpent Society? Or
no. When they revealed, I can't believe.
Oh, that was a fake, right? Wasn't it like
when they revealed Marvel Phase 3?
Yeah,
and we're going out all of the names, including the Inhumans movie.
Mm-hmm.
they announced that the third Captain America movie, the follow-up to Winter Soldier, would be titled Captain America: The Serpent Society.
And then they
Sickos loved it.
Yeah, of course.
Then they were like, just kidding, it's Civil War. And then we're like, biscuits.
Dang it. Where are my snake people?
The MCU Civil War is better than the comic Civil War.
I enjoy that movie. I do.
I think it has some structural issues that need to be resolved.
I mean, look, it's a Marvel movie. I'm not saying it's incredible. I think these two comics have some structural issues that might need to be resolved. Because
you mean the fact that Claremont's just kind of doing free jazz X-Men here?
Free jazz. That's a very good way to put it. Because we have Forge basically having his Vietnam flashback through these two issues, right? We're finally getting to the root of how he used his mystic powers in battle.
Kind of, but we already got that. That's the thing that threw me off. We've read Fall of the Mutants. Like, we know. It feels like Claremont's treading the same ground again.
I agree. That part definitely seems repetitious. What is also, I guess, I don't know if I consider this repetitious or not, but we're back with the Morlocks. And Mask has taken over and is basically turning everybody into X-Men faced creatures. With the help of
a new Morlock named Bliss.
Yes, Bliss, who looks like Jean Grey, and when she sticks out her tongue, has a little Jean Grey on the end.
Well, no, so she did it. She has the power to morph into people,
right?
And then also she has a weird tongue that has her real little head, like she's an alien from Aliens. But in this story, her first and most famous appearance, she morphs into Jean Grey. So future people have just drawn her like Jean Grey. It's friggin' weird.
Yeah, because you never really see her in her actual original form. So there's all of these weird little creatures skittering around that are kind of manipulated by both of them, and they all have like X-Men heads. So like it's like Beast, but it's on the front of a cockroach or whatever. And well, Jean
not Morph. Mask is a little freak.
Oh, talk about freaky. So the reason there's tentacles in this story is because Jean and Banshee fall into the clutches of Mask. And what happens, Zach?
Well, Banshee gets his mouth removed.
Yeah, that's not a good.
And then Jean gets a bunch of tentacle arms.
Yeah, so last story we had 8 tentacles. How many tentacles would you say are coming off of Jean in these 2 issues?
We're talking 20 plus.
Easily. I mean, it's disgusting.
And Claremont does a weird thing here where he has Forge give Jean a pep talk about being disabled. It's like, right. Well, your tentacles can probably do things that your arms couldn't. And I'm like, well, Forge, one, I get where you're coming from, but this literally just happened to her like 5 seconds ago, so maybe let her process. Also, this is a bad metaphor because people don't get superpower tentacles.
No.
That's not... You're stretching what you're wanting to say so far that it snaps back into being an insane thing. Anyway, Jean then uses her tentacles to swing around like she's a Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah. So much so that by the end of the second issue, when she does get her arms back, because it just so happens that when Forge injected them in the first issue with some sort of super antibiotic, it somehow did make them immune to this process and allowed them to change back somehow. But she does actually lament losing the tentacles.
She's like, oh, I loved my tentacles.
Oh, man.
I wish I would have kept them. Jean was having an awakening.
I guess, man. I think Claremont is working through something. I don't understand it. It's going to become even more confusing when we talk about our third story.
The other thing that happens here is that Mask kidnaps Peter Nicholas.
Yes, tell us about Peter Nicholas.
It's Pyotr Rasputin after he went through the Siege Perilous, and now he's a hot painter of beautiful women
who's been dating Callisto and having a little romance there. But now Callisto also looks like a supermodel and doesn't look like she used to.
There's 2 problems. One, it's that no one ever really drew Callisto as ugly. like
Right.
ever.
Just kind of like a pirate.
Paul Smith did, and then like John Romita was incapable of making her ugly. He was like, yeah, she's a hot underground goth lady.
Look, I mean, when we see her in the post Siege Perilous era, it's Silvestri drawing her, so it's a real like model babe, right? Like it's a look.
And okay, here's the thing. Again, and this is Chris Claremont trying to stretch a metaphor past the point of it making any realistic sense. Callisto in this does complain that now she's hot.
Right.
And she's like, I liked being ugly. It's such a curse to be so hot. I'm a smoke show. And like, y'all, like, I get what you're trying to say, and you're coming from a good place about like loving the body that you're in and doing all that, Chris Claremont. But from a practical standpoint, it rings really hollow when you're like, I'm the hottest person in the world now. That sucks.
Right. Yeah. Doesn't quite ring true.
It's like a story that comes out and someone's like, well, I got all of this money, but it didn't buy happiness. It's like, okay, well, hold on. I'm not saying you can't still have problems. I'm just saying that we live in a society and we all know what the game is.
Yeah, we all know that when you get tentacle arms, your life is improved. So, you know.
Well, Callisto, hold on to that, Adam, because I got some great news for Callisto.
Let's hold on to these tentacles for another story. But, you know, to a certain extent, I get why Claremont would want there to be something grotesque like the tentacles, because all of the creatures in here are quite grotesque, but it is really something to make this choice.
It doesn't come across as grotesque.
I don't know. I mean,
it's just like Jean is still super hot. It's just that now her arms are these weird, goofy tentacles.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because Bill Jaska does a really good job of drawing these figures. And she, like, if you just hold your hands over the tentacles, she just looks like a normal, sexy superhero. But then you move your hands, you're like, ah!
Ah, tentacles, surprise!
Yeah.
Okay, we can work with this. Hold on.
Yeah. And I mean,
it's more the surprise that she has tentacles and that you just have to mentally adjust to that than being grossed out by it, which, given history, it feels like Claremont is not.
Yeah. Yep. Well,
man, it's a whole thing.
It really is.
I don't want to go sexually analyze Chris Claremont, but I've been doing this podcast for a while. Like, I'm picking up a few things.
So along the way, it does seem like Colossus starts to get a better idea of who he actually is. He's transformed back into his steel form, and between him and Tentacle Jean, they are able to take Mask out, and then her and Banshee are returned back to their normal form. Forge is making peace with his past and his old, his late soldiers.
I don't know what Claremont thinks he's doing with this being Forge accepting Vietnam.
I don't know. The only thing I can think of is that this is still, I guess, kind of in like I want to say the tail end of kind of like the Vietnam pop culture boom, right? Of like the movies and
it's 1990.
Yeah, like, so we're really getting to like the end of this era of it being so popular in the media, and it seems like Claremont is still holding on to that. But it doesn't really add much to the story. In fact, it takes up too much of the story, if anything.
It takes up a lot of space, because here's the thing. What's Mask doing? I don't know. He's being a weirdo.
Right.
Mask is just being this little creep.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah.
Forge is over here having like trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a weird mix.
It really is. So this one doesn't work nearly as well as what we were just talking about. This is certainly not a top 200 story.
I would say that this is worse than Web of Venom.
Oh, absolutely.
A story that did not take... Actually, I'm going to take that back. A story that took Vietnam a lot more seriously and with more pathos than this one, which is shocking because that one has Wolverine getting a Venom symbiote in it.
Yeah, and that we ranked that at 330 last week. This is not nearly that good. I mean, the art is actually not bad, and there are
It's not bad, but it's like it has the unfortunate curse of being stuck between Mark Silvestri and Jim Lee.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's
true.
like I'm looking at this and I'm saying, I know this can be better.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, down at 548 is another story with some tentacles in it, and that is the Discord arc of New Mutants Volume 3, and I think that is better than this.
That does also have tentacles in it.
It does. It has a little Cthulhu monster in it.
Chris didn't do that one.
No.
I'm going to make a statement here that's going to sound a little bold.
Please.
I mean, like, this is worse than War of the Realms Uncanny X-Men.
And that is at
551.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You have Uncanny X-Men Old Soldiers. That's 215 to 216 highlighted.
Mm-hmm.
I think Old Soldiers is better.
I do too. This is
probably better than Deadly Genesis, though, right?
Yeah, I think it is, and I have to put this ahead of Expose. I mean, for as much as this is kind of goofy, I still like this era. So why
does Extreme X-Men Expose have tentacles?
I don't remember, but there's not a 0%
Claremont has like a mutant bar in there, so like background characters, I wouldn't be shocked.
All right, so Gene Tentacles is going in at 567. So we're already up to, like, if there were 8 in the first story, like maybe 25 in the second story. So we're already in the 30s. We need to add a few more good tentacles. So where are we going to find these, Zach?
Oh, we're going to find them in Excalibur Volume 3, buddy. Everyone remembers Excalibur Volume 3 is that time when Chris Claremont said, actually, Zorn is dumb.
That's right.
And I'm going to have Magneto and Charles Xavier rebuild Genosha, which I'm going to say, as a pitch, this is actually like that high-level pitch of Charles Xavier and Magneto have to put aside everything and try and build, especially because that hadn't been done before.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good pitch. I think the idea of Xavier and Magneto trying to build a mutant nation could perhaps be a good story.
I am going to say something wild. So we covered Excalibur Volume 3, 1 to 4 a while back.
In the before times.
Forging the sword. And I distinctly remember hating that.
Right.
Now, I went into this I tried to be as objective and as open-minded as I possibly could. And I have to say, there are moments here that are, while there are some things in this that are absolutely terrible and stupid, there are also some pretty good, like, Claremont writing in here that I was like, wait a minute.
Like he's still cooking a little bit.
He's still cooking. He's doing
a bit of it. Yeah, kind of. Just like not all the way,
right? But still,
but it's like it's the same feeling that I got when there was a halfway decent X-Men title between 2015 and 2019. I was like, hold on.
Yep.
There's something here.
Yep. So we're still on the destroyed island of Genosha. Xavier is woken from his slumber by a psychic vision of multiple locations of X-Corps in Southeast Asia being blown up by trolls. Sure.
Yeah. So it's weird because in my mind, I was like, are these the trolls from that one story with friggin' Alchemy from X Factor?
I don't think so. They're not those trolls.
They are separate trolls.
Yeah.
And then, well, here's the other thing. You don't know this about Excalibur, but in the next arc, do you know who the bad guy is?
No.
Oh, it's the Sugar Man?
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I was like, is this like a Sugar Man thing? Because I knew it was coming. And it's like, are these like the dog soldiers from Age of Apocalypse? And they're not.
No, I
They're
believe
just some
they
weird
are
trolls.
Yeah, I believe they're Asgardian. That seems to be implied here. I'm not sure. But who comes to find Xavier in his moment of need as he's laying outside in the rain but Callisto? And I don't know if folks remember this from when we talked about Excalibur Volume 3 the last time, but Callisto has Jean Grey tentacle arms in this story.
Go back to our episode on Storm the Arena, which
Yes.
is a controversial story, and we do not share everybody's opinion on it. There are some people that really enjoy that story. I do not consider myself one of them.
Me neither.
I can see the appeal. It's not for me.
Mm-mm.
Mask gave Callisto tentacle arms in that.
Yes.
And Callisto's just vibing at this point.
Yeah, she actually, just like Jean did at the end of that last arc, she seems to actually not hate it. And to the point where
She's like, this is great, actually. Tentacle arms, let's go.
She's become really talented with them. She's picking Charles up. She's putting him back in his chair.
Do you know how many knives she can juggle with those arms?
Oh man, she's just throwing these like spear length swords everywhere. It's crazy.
But who appears to try and do something to capture some mutants and do some stuff on Genosha? After, here's the thing. Callisto does like a pretty decent speech to Charles. She's like, yeah, I heard John Greycrow was around. I'm mad about the mutant massacre still for obvious reasons. You have all this stuff that goes on about that. And then a guy shows up.
Strip mine.
He looks like Greycrow. That's the thing. I was like, is there actually a connection here?
I thought
and there's not.
I thought
He's
for a hot second that he was the pirate guy from the Man-Thing story. Because I was like, oh, he's a pirate. Oh, he's that guy from Claremont's Man-Thing story. But it's not. It's just another set of Claremont pirates. Claremont loves pirates.
And they're very specifically like slave trading pirates, like he was doing with the slavers with what's his Blue Mojo. You know the guy I'm talking about.
Yep.
I want to call him Yuzum Vog, but I know that's not right. That's
Gulliver Tove. What the heck is his name? It's the Extreme X-Men guy.
We know. No, it's the Revolutions era Claremont guy.
Hold on, this is gonna bother me.
It really is. I think the Yuzum Vog, which I'm probably mispronouncing, they were characters from Star Wars novels that I'm sure a lot of people read and I could never get into.
I don't know. I don't know how to look this up, so I'm not going to worry about it. Listeners, you know exactly who we're talking about. So as these pirates arrive, we get another Claremontism, another trope, where to protect Charles from incoming, I guess, nanite darts.
Yes.
Which are going to disable their powers for
Telomere Vogue.
Telomere Vogue, thank you. All right. See, I wasn't that wrong with Gulliver Tove.
We were both close.
You're in the ballpark. Callisto lays a nice big smooch on Charles. They have a little kissy.
She's like, make out with me. It's a distraction. They're not going to search you. And then she uses her tentacles to put weapons in him.
Yes. So essentially these pirates have come. There's pirates, there's trolls. And
the trolls work with the pirates.
Yes. And they are after mainly, they're going to take all of them, but they've disabled them so that they can get their hands on the Omega Sentinel, Karima Shapandar.
Who is around and
not in the format you're probably most familiar with, readers. This is like her original.
She's not a Chris Pachalo person at this point.
No.
She's just vibing.
Yeah. And by the end of this arc, she will have discovered all of her, pop out weapons that come out of her body. But at this point, she has no idea what's really going on. There are other Claremont creations sort of sprinkled throughout here, including Shola Inkos, whose power is...
I like the concept of Shola.
I don't hate it. I just feel like the design of his character is so similar to Ink. I mean, not Ink, Sync,
Sync.
that
Yes, that's the
it's
problem.
it's weird that like there's this other character who has similar like absorption powers.
He's a telekinetic, but he shows it like a field like Sync does
Yeah, but
when
he
it's
gains
drawn.
his power by like grief. So he's getting charged up by like the misery of the genocide that happened at Genosha, which is insane.
Not the most insane Genosha based power here.
Would that be Wicked?
Wicked, who I kind of love. Her power is that she controls all of the ghosts of Genosha.
Yes. Yep.
She's a goth chick, and her power is all of the anger of ghosts from Genosha.
Yep.
It rules, actually. She's great.
And then we have Freak Show, who is basically a shapeshifter who can transform into monsters.
Whatever, he sucks. No one likes Freak Show.
He's a nobody. So that is part of the problem, is that Claremont
or Hub or Hack or Purge. No one cares about those.
Yeah, nobody really cares about any of these new characters that he's throwing in. It would have been much more successful arc if they, did something else. But what really did set this apart is that what Claremont does about halfway through this arc, which is called Food Fight for some reason, whatever, is that he drops Dark Beast into the mix, and Claremont's Dark Beast is a freaking delight.
What happens is you find out that the pirates are working for Unis the Untouchable, who's just a jerk.
Well, he was in the first arc saying that like he owned the island, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unis continues to be a weird jerk who's trying to punch above his weight class. And Claremont knows that's the case, and he knows that like Unis was such a nothing character that he never picked him up for any other things, which Claremont picked up everybody from the 60s. Like, they're all there except for Unis the Untouchable in the Claremont run. So he's like, yeah, this guy who sucks. I guess Mesmero also sucks, but...
Yeah, but
he uses Mesmero. He used Mesmero in some stuff.
What is...
Yeah, it's just Unis.
Yeah, what is great about this is that he really understands what a chump Unis is.
He does.
Unis cannot recognize Magneto, which is fun. And I still don't quite understand why, because he's not able to do it even when Professor X's powers are down. So I don't know what's up with that, but it's really funny.
Unis is very dumb. And it's like, oh yeah, it's his cousin, Michael.
Yeah, that's Michael Xavier. So we get this great Dark Beast monologue where he's sort of bouncing around, and it's like, it's a really smart thing that Claremont does where he gives the Dark Beast like the same kind of personality quirks as Hank McCoy, but like still very clearly evilly monologuing, and it's fun.
Claremont, he does a good job with that. He does a good job with like the Xavier and Magneto and Callisto stuff.
Yeah.
Like, they all legitimately have some really interesting viewpoints. They have a lot going on. He even tries, bless Claremont, he even tries to work in the retcon that what's his name from the Weapon, Frank Thierry does in the Weapon X series about how Sinister was working in the concentration camps.
Oh, I couldn't believe when that popped up. That was nuts, because Magneto has that flashback.
Yeah, Claremont's like, fine, we're doing that now? Great. I'm adding it. I'm going to give it some pathos, actually.
That scene works. It's crazy.
It does. It's insane because it's a retcon that I get. Like, listen, the problem with, because we did this discourse for years and now I'm not on the internet and I realize that actually I don't have to discourse about if I like a fictional character anymore.
You don't.
I don't. It's super easy. Here's the thing. The problem is Sinister is delightful and funny, and it's hard to blend in so many years of writing that conflicts with one another into one like genuine thing. So you just have to roll with it, and sometimes that's not always easy for everybody, and I can appreciate that.
Sure. Yeah.
But in this case, I think it works as a moment. It also, I don't care if Sinister is affable and kind of funny until Kieran Gillen writes him.
That's really true. Yeah. He's kind of a nothing, background character until then.
Just
So
like he is in X-Men
I
97
was
in
just
such
gonna
the
say,
weirdest thing of why is he around in that?
and working for
Besides
Bastion, it's weird.
besides the fact that they were like, "Oh, I really want to do the Madeline Pryor thing,"
Mhm.
but then not really execute that in any
Oh my god.
We're going to talk about the animated series at a
save
different
it.
time. I know that I have a different opinion than most people.
Just save that for a future episode. So at the end, like I mentioned, Omega Sentinel does realize that she has weapons and stops Dark Beast and frees everybody. And we get this great one pager at the end of the last issue of Charles and Eric basically agreeing that they're going to give it a shot. They're going to try and work together and make this into a mutant society. And I'm getting full on Krakoa vibes, baby. Like, it's such a beautiful little moment between these guys who, like, at one point, I think Xavier says something like, where my soul ends, his begins. Like, you could just
I mean,
feel
they're in love.
The bromance here is like heavy.
These two men are in love,
Yes.
and that's fine.
Yes.
And I want the best for them. I want them. What I want, here's actually what I want. I want Chris Claremont to come back and be like, screw it. I'm going to give you guys Chris Claremont's like thoughts on Krakoa, but I'm going to make sure that you understand I'm doing a follow-up to my the third volume of Excalibur, and I'm going to tie that explicitly into all of the Krakoa stuff, and you're going to deal with it.
Yeah.
That's what I want from Chris Claremont.
You know, I wouldn't say no to it, honestly, at this point, but I enjoyed this. It surprised me. It's certainly goofy as heck with all of the like trolls fighting freak show or whatever stuff, but the stuff with the characters that we know, the Callisto stuff, the Xavier, the Magneto stuff, it works. It surprised me. It really surprised me. So I am a little bit flummoxed as to where to put this.
I'm going to say it is better than Storm Volume 3, Number 3, Life Death, which is at 500 right at this exact second.
Okay. I think that's fair. So at 400, we have the first Rogue in X-Men issue.
It's not as good as that.
This is worse than that. So we're
that's 150. That's Uncanny 158.
Okay, so we're in the 400s is what we're saying, right?
Yeah, we're in the 400s somewhere.
Okay. I think this
what's
is
450? What's 450? What's 450? Marvel Fanfare The Savage Land.
What's crazy is right now I'm like, is this better than that? Like, I don't know.
No, it's not better than it's not. Like, Adam, I know what this is how our list gets screwed up because we're like, well, I haven't read that Savage Land story in 5 years. No, this is better than that. Let's stop being crazy.
All right,
that Savage Land story is better.
This is not better than 483, which is Skinning of Souls, X-Men 17 to 19.
That's probably true. Man, Skinning of Souls, that's wild.
Better or worse than New Excalibur 1 to 3 at 489.
I'm going to say it's better than that and better than New Excalibur 6 and 7, so why is it I'm not dead? But worse than the Claremont Man-Thing story.
Well, the Uncanny X-Men Man-Thing story. We got to be
yes, with despair.
All right, so this is going to be our new 486 Excalibur Volume 3, 5 to 7 food fight. Zach, that was a lot of tentacles.
There's so many tentacles. We didn't even talk about how at one point in this, Callisto is so mad that her tentacles don't work. And Charles Xavier has to give her a pep talk about how he's in a wheelchair. So, she can shut up and deal with the fact that she has really good legs that can kick and she can do flips and stuff. Then she says, actually, Charles, you're making a valid point. This is much better than the time I complained about being very hot.
Yes. Yeah, it's better than Forge's Gene speech, that's for sure.
It really is. Like, it's the same. That's the thing. It's the same speech, but it's what it is Gene is upset about having tentacles and having more, and Callisto is upset about having less.
Yes. That's a good point.
And that's where it works out. That's the big difference. Is Charles, who has, let's just say, a conflicting relationship with his disability, says tells her, that doesn't define you. You're Callisto. Be Callisto. That's very different than saying, having arms doesn't define you. You have cool new tentacles now, or being ugly doesn't define you. You're hot.
Right.
See, like when you say it like that, it's the same speech. But this one, Claremont got it right on the third try. Good for him.
He had time to think about it, and he figured it out. So
he sat through it. He's like, wait, last time I did this. In retrospect,
man, those 90s.
I can see the challenges.
All right. So who do we have to thank again for all of these tentacles?
Christopher Claremont? No, Ricardo Bittencourt.
Thank you,
Ricardo. Thank you so much. Want to be like Ricardo? Go to Patreon. We actually I'm going to say it. We've had a good little string of recent patrons.
Oh, good.
A good steady stream of some new folks coming in.
Keep it coming, guys.
And they've made insane suggestions.
That's what we need.
Great.
All right.
Including what we're doing next week, which will be fun. But before we do that, Adam, what do you got going on? Anything?
No, just follow me on socials. Adam Rec on Blue Sky and Instagram. Arthur Stacy on Twitter. And Zach, what are we doing next week?
Oh, that's a great question. We're doing an adaptation of adaptations of the X-Men animated series.
I see.
Which was on the schedule before we realized that it would be the finale of X-Men 97, so I can get all of my hot takes out.
Love it. Those would be great.
Can't wait. I'm conflicted on this.
I'm less so it'll be a good conversation.
It'll be quite an interesting experience. I'm curious about how the ending is going to happen.
Me too.
But they also left I'm sorry, don't telegraph that you're going to use time travel to fix all of your endings by having multiple time travel-y people around. Don't do that. Don't tell me at the start that that's how you're going to fix it.
Zach, this is next week content. You got to save this.
Unless they're trying to swerve me. Well, I don't know. I haven't seen the last episode yet. It hasn't been out. But if maybe they're trying to swerve me.
I don't know.
In which case, then I'd just ask, why did you write out Bishop for the entire season? That's a wild choice.
It is a big choice.
Why did you also write out Storm for most of it so she can do a really bad adaptation of Life Death? We are going to get into that next week. Until then, folks, this has been Battle of the Autumn. We hope you survived the experience.
Get it!